Hello everyone, and welcome to our Listen and Do section of the Science for Reading project. So I'm Mrs. Edmondson. I'm a science teacher at Phalange Park High School in Rochdale and also a member of the Surrey team, which is part of the University of Manchester. And today I'm very excited about sharing with you, not exactly the full chapter, but one of the chapters in a book about a fascinating scientist called Nikola Tesla, who was around in the 1800s, so quite a while ago. And you may have heard of that term Tesla before, or you might not. You might have just heard it for the first time today. But he is an amazing scientist. The way that he worked, his mind, the way that he was dedicated to science. And this book fits perfectly in with the electricity topic. And although I'm only going to share a small section with you, your teacher has a copy of this book, which I'm sure they will share with you once you're all back in the classroom, or perhaps even let you borrow it if you want to read a little bit more about Nikola Tesla. So as I did with and as I've done with other books, I'm going to select 3 pause points where we will explore some of the vocabulary and might direct you also to some of the science that you're going to look at later on at the end of the reading. So I'm going to direct you at the end to a science investigation, okay, that's linked to our topic of electricity, as well as some vocabulary tasks, but obviously I'll refer to those at the end. So we're going to start the reading in a second, but I'm basically picking up the story at chapter 6. And this chapter is quite exciting because up to this point, and if you go back and look at the book, you'll actually realize that Tesla's had quite a difficult life. There's been a lot of ups and downs, as there is quite often in people's lives, but he's about to discover his fame and fortune. So let's begin. Chapter 6, from Who Was Nikola Tesla by Jim Gigliotti. Chapter 6, Fame and Fortune. The mid-1880s were an exciting time in New York City. Skyscrapers were being built. The Statue of Liberty arrived as a gift from France in 1885, and parts of Manhattan were being lit by the Edison Electric Illuminating Company of New York. It was a difficult time for Nikola, however. He was unemployed and broke. He was also alone. His family was halfway round the world. He needed to find a way to put food on the table. Nikola wondered if all his years studying science and mechanics, reading books and endlessly working through problems in his mind had been a waste of time. Then Nikola got the chance to earn $2 per day by digging ditches. It turned out to be his big break. The foreman on the job overheard Nikola talking about his AC motor. He said he knew a man who was an expert electrician. That man's name was Alfred Brown. When Mr. Brown met Nikola, he was impressed by Nikola's ideas on alternating current. Together with a lawyer named Charles Peck, Brown and Tesla formed the Tesla Electric Company. They opened a laboratory in New York City in autumn 1886 and worked to develop patents on alternating current technology. A patent protects the inventor from someone else copying the idea. It creates an authentic record of the date, time, and place of each invention. I'm going to pause just here to explore one of the terms, and there are some quite tricky pieces of vocabulary here, but some of these you'll meet in your electricity topic. But I just want to pick up on the term authentic. Okay, so have you heard the term authentic before? Perhaps you can try and work out what that term means just using clues from the text and from the book. Can you try and say the word out loud? So can you say it like we did in the past, where we're saying it quietly or saying it in an angry voice? Have a go at saying that word out loud. If you've had to think about what you might understand the word to mean, I'm now about to give you the definition. So authentic, if a person, an object or emotion is said to be authentic, it is said to be genuine or real. So synonyms of the word authentic include true, accurate, and genuine. Antonyms, so opposite terms, include false, invalid, and unlikely. Now, I'm going to ask you again to pause once I've asked this question and maybe consider this, okay? If you've got somebody to talk to, then obviously you can discuss your ideas, or you can choose to write them down. So in the story, they talk about the patent being authentic. Can you think of a time you have come across something you thought was real or to be true and therefore authentic, but it turned out to be false or not real? Pause the video now and share your thoughts. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to discuss your ideas. So we're going to move on with the story now. That same year, the US government granted Nikola his first patents. In 1888, he presented his system of alternating current motors and transformers to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers at Columbia University in New York. As usual, he had a clear vision for the future of electricity before anyone else did. Nikola's patented ideas got the attention of George Westinghouse, the owner of the Westinghouse Electric Company. George was a direct competitor of Thomas Edison's. Nikola explained how his patents could beat Edison in the electricity business. Edison had brought electricity to parts of Manhattan in 1882, but most Americans were still more than 40 years away from having electricity. They still used gas lamps and candles to light their homes. Direct current couldn't travel very far before losing power, so Edison's DC system required many, many power plants. Nikola's AC system could supply electricity to thousands of people with a single power plant. Okay, we're just going to pause there again because we've got an unusual term here that actually sometimes isn't called this in the United Kingdom. So I think we need to explore the term, and it also links in with our Tier 3 vocabulary for this topic, which is electricity. So I'm going to come to the term power plant. Okay, so power plant, you may have heard of this before, perhaps on TV, or you might have heard it being mentioned as you were discussing with friends or overhearing it in conversation. But power plant can sometimes be called a power station in the United Kingdom. So power plant and power station are the same. But that term, power plant, can you say it out loud? So power plant, can you say it in a loud voice and a quiet voice? Okay, power plant. So what do you think that is? What images come to your mind? Have a think before I give you the definition. So a power plant, or a power station, as we call it in the United Kingdom, is a place where electricity is produced. Related words, so similar words, okay, but not synonyms, because actually it's very difficult to find synonyms for the term power plant, are actually names of power plants which you might come across, such as a nuclear power plant or a nuclear power station, and coal-fired power stations. Antonyms for the word power station, again, aren't common. They're not used, but sometimes the term power plant could be confused with something else in science. So in science, we call these non-examples. So it's things that could be confused with what we actually mean. So one of the most common non-examples of a power plant or a power station can sometimes be a battery, because you might have used batteries in phones and in torches. And you might think that batteries make electricity, but actually batteries don't do that. They don't generate electricity, but they do store electricity. So they are an energy store. So in the story, Nikola wants to use fewer power plants or power stations. And in England, we now, in the 21st century, have several of these around the country, generating or making lots of electricity. And that then comes to our homes. So I want you now to pause the video and imagine what it must have been like before the power plants existed. Or imagine we didn't have power plants today. We don't have any power stations. So we mustn't have any electricity. So have a think and write down your ideas. If you've got someone close by to talk about these ideas, maybe talk to them. But write down how our lives would be different without electricity. Okay, hopefully you've paused and shared your ideas and have got some really good ideas from other people as well. So we're going to carry on with this chapter now. So George Westinghouse wanted to buy Nikola's alternating current patents. That gave him the right to use Nikola's ideas as if they were his own. Westinghouse offered a huge amount for the patents. Some reports say Tesla received about $60,000 for nearly 30 patents. That's about $1.5 million in today's money. Nikola also was to receive payments called royalties every time the technology was used in a new system. Only a few days before his 32nd birthday in 1888, Nikola accepted Westinghouse's offer. Suddenly, he was a rich man. He sent money home to his mother and his sisters, and he paid the men who had helped him to set up the Tesla company. Nikola had enough left over to do what he really wanted, go back to his lab and work on his ideas. Nikola had been living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, trying to help the Westinghouse company make his technology work. But in 1889, he returned to New York. He opened a new laboratory on Grand Street and moved into the fancy Astor House Hotel in New York City. Nikola invited celebrities and scientists to watch demonstrations of his experiments. He was quite a showman in the lab. He amazed his guests with demonstrations that looked like magic. In one, he held a glass tube in one hand and a wire coursing with alternating current in the other. The current travelled across his body and into the tube, making it glow with a beautiful light. Okay, we're actually going to finish the story there, and I'm going to ask you to consider one of the terms on this page. Now, obviously, as I've mentioned before, your teacher does have a copy of this book. So at some point, you may well get to read a little bit more. But for now, I want us to think about one of the words, and it's called coursing. So at the top of the page there, you can see it's talking about coursing with alternating current. So coursing, you might have heard the term coursing before. What is it making you think of? Can you say that word out loud? Can you say it in a quiet voice or a loud voice and in an animated voice, an excited voice? Before I tell you what the definition is, have a think. Okay, but coursing, so the term coursing means, or when you course, it means something follows a route or a pathway along which it's traveling. So it's following a path. So if you are coursing, you are following a path quite quickly. So synonyms, so similar words to course or to coursing, include to flow or to move and to chase. And antonyms, so opposite words, include to rest and to dawdle or to ignore. So in the book, the current, which is the flow of charge, so some charged particles, It looks magnificent and everyone is impressed by Nikola's demonstrations. Can you think of any electrical appliances which need electrical energy? So try listing and maybe drawing or talking about your ideas. So anything that you would say uses electricity in the home, and maybe write these down and share them with your teachers. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this short section and want to find out a little bit more about Nikola Tesla and who he was and what he did. I'd now like you to be an excellent observer, just like Nikola, and do an investigation for me at home where you will need to be able to fill in a survey. So you will be given a sheet, okay, which will allow you to fill in the survey about some of the electrical appliances, so the objects you have at home that use or need electricity. The instructions are on the sheet, and as always, we'd love to hear how you get on. So be sure to share what you find with your teachers, who can then share it with us. We'd also like you to explore 3 of the words in a bit more detail. So the 3 focus words. We've created 2 activity sheets for you to try, and one explores the words through pictures and linking the words with pictures, and another involves using a dice and is a little vocabulary dice activity. Again, instructions are on the sheet and easy to follow, but we'd love to find out how you're getting on. So be sure to share any of the results and any of the things that you carry out with your teachers. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.